Good morning, good evening, and good night to wherever you are, and I hope you're having a great day. My bad. So today's my first YouTube video, and I've just kind of wanted to do this for a while, and even if it's not a good video, I'll probably end up rewatching it over and over again. So I'll see how that goes. I've just been kind of inspired by other people, and I've just kind of wanted to do this for a while. So we'll see how it goes. But today's topic, I want to talk about something that's been like happening in social media, influencers, and all of that. It's going to be about hustle culture. We've seen all the quotes waking up at like 5 a.m. early, or just all the motivational coach to be working harder, faster, and for more consistently. But the thing is that with this mindset, it could harm people as well. You know, and the thing about this is that it promotes the idea of always constantly working and relentless, not even relentless, but constant, like working at all times, But the thing is that it seems like the keys to like doing really good, but like it could also cause like a lot of anxiety and mental illnesses. It could affect people in different ways that people never even knew about, And it sounds silly, but it's true, you know. So the first thing I want to like one of the things I want to speak about this topic is about burnout. And the thing is that burnout is bigger than anything that we've seen in a very long time, because you know what, we have brain rot, your TikTok, Instagram, YouTube shorts and reels, you know and we've consumed a lot of it, and what happens is that it takes our attention span away. So what happens is that when we put our attention to that, when we try to watch the long form content, what will happen is that it will like make it harder for us to retain our video, or we have to watch multiple things at once, which proves how we can't focus at one singular thing. And one thing that I will preach always is to, if you want to work on your attention span, is to work on meditating by yourself and focus on your breathing. You know, that also helps attention spans. But the thing is that with burnout, that involved, it ties into it. But working so hard over a long period of time, it could affect you mentally, physically. You know, and if you do, make sure you take care of yourself. You know, and the next thing is that it just sets up with the hustle culture from like social media influencers. It sets up like unrealistic expectations. With you see everybody with the Lamborghinis, Ferraris, all these expensive cars, expensive jewelry, expensive clothes, expensive lifestyle, and the thing is that other people look at that and think to themselves, "I want this," and they hear from the creator, so they start listening to them. They're more likely to listen to them and consume content from them, and what ends up happening is that you end up wanting to be that, and usually that's not always how it seems on the outside. There's always a side that you don't see, you know. And the thing is that also another thing about the hustle culture that I'll mention that no one really talks about, when you're so focused on what you're doing, and I've seen this for at least some people around me, when you're so focused, even for myself, when you're so focused on doing what you want to do, you forget about other things. You forget about talking to your family as much. You forget about talking to your friends as much. You forget about talking to your cousins as much, uncles, aunties, all that stuff. You forget about talking to people. You become so consumed about working so hard by yourself. You've been trying to put in so many inputs that you forget everything else. And you realize that you just want to talk. Like, you just realize even working so hard is just like you don't want to talk to anybody. You kind of throw out your social life. And I feel like it's really bad because I feel like it's important to talk to people. And um, you should definitely not be working this hard, and you should definitely be at least like speaking to people. I feel like one thing in life is to always try to balance things out. As hard as it sounds, it might sound impossible, but you know what? Balancing things out makes life a lot better. As hard as it is, because look, at the end of the day, us like human beings, us Homo sapiens, we're creatures of habit, you know, and what we do to a day-to-day basis. And the best thing is the best thing that we are best at is our ability to adapt to change, you know. So another thing another thing is how about this hustle culture is that it's created a lot of innovation and not as much creation. And this hasn't really also, I mean, it's also tied in with the hustle culture, but it's also tied in with like how the world is recently, you know. But I'm not going to get too far into that. But with hustle culture, you know, everybody, you know, e-commerce, a whole bunch of stuff, drop shipping, all this stuff. It's all innovation, you know. People don't want to try to create their own thing as much, you know, like look at all the big companies, you know, your Apple, your Tesla, if I'm not mistaken, or at least I was told. I mean, I think from what I've heard, but they're all made by immigrants. You know what, Nikola Tesla? They were all made by immigrants. They made it themselves. Having that creativity can lead to big things, man. Like human beings, like we create things, and we don't find them as a big deal. You know something? Something I find is that whenever we do something that's amazing, we don't tend to like look back at it and think to ourselves, wow, this was like amazing. Now that when you really think about it, because we're just like, it's such a normal concept to us. It's so normal for us to normalize things and not make them as such a big deal, as such big accomplishments. Like the first man on the moon, I mean, people would say that was amazing for sure, you know, but other things as well, you know, with the first develops of AI, how it's transformed, how so many things, you know, how us as human beings have transformed so many things and created and innovated things, you know, recently, man, over the past few decades, man. We've been innovating, but man, we've been making advancements in innovation like crazy, man. You know what I'm saying? Like the AI, you know, spaceships, you know, technology, you know, all of that's been changing, you know, and it's crazy to see it at first point eyes view, you know, from any generation perspective, you know, and it's really crazy to think about, you know. And another thing I want to say is how people have the ability to change, and people forget that, you know. Remember that your own thoughts, your own perception of things ultimately ends up becoming a reality, you know. So, and this last thing I'm going to say here, I think, so I remember one of my uncles told me this, you know, and he was talking about money, you know, because he saw the development of it happening, at least like the hustle culture thing coming. So he always said that, you know, you could get so much money, but you could, like, after getting so much money, you don't get that same satisfaction because you get so greedy, you know. And he says, you know, real success happens when you work with things that you like, you know, and you take care of the people that you love, you know, and you've spent your whole life with, and you like to help out other people, you know. That's a feeling, that's a success that you will get compared to so many other things, you know, and that's just different, you know. And as he said, you know, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, I think that's what real success is, you know, enjoying yourself in the process, you know, because at the end of the day, the output is the output, and what's important is the input or the journey along the way, you know. So thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to comment and like and subscribe, you can. And if you have any ideas on what video I should do next, just let me know. And then until then, have a good one. Peace.